you for joining. My name is Abhishek Sharma. I am a member of Nexus investment team based in San Francisco. Nexus Venture Partners is a 15-year-old early stage venture capital firm. We were founded as one fund, one team between US and India. We have offices in Bangalore, Bombay, and Menlo Park. And over the years, we have been very fortunate to be part of several product-led growth companies from inception stages. Companies like Postman, Hasura, Fingerprint.js, Apollo, Min.io, Growthbook, and the list goes, Quizzes, and the list goes on. Speaking of product-led growth, I'm overjoyed to have Tim here, with us. I met Tim almost 6 years ago, pretty much by chance, right after Y Combinator demo day. And it was very clear after our first meeting that Tim and his co-founders had something special and we had to work together. So we invested in the seed round and worked very closely. We later preempted the Series A, and it's been like a fortunate experience to work with Tim. Other thing I would add is I was 9 or 10 months into my VC career, so it was the first company I was investing in and taking a board seat. So in a way, Tim took a chance on me. So thank you, Tim. Tim, as you know, he's founder and CEO of Apollo. I let Tim introduce himself, but from my perspective, he's a one-of-kind founder, extremely detail-oriented, very hardworking, focused, not on Twitter if that matters, and yeah, I mean, just very product-driven. Tim, it's great to have you here. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Abhishek. Yeah, hey everyone, my name is Tim. Really excited to be here. Thank you so much for coming. A bit about myself, and I guess first how I met Abhishek was the day after our demo day at Y Combinator. That was like almost 6 years ago, and it's been a core part of the journey ever since. Led our Series A, core part of our Series B and C, and even both ups and downs. Like we had a lot of great moments, but even during the hardest times at Apollo, it's been just amazing partnering with you, Abhishek. Yeah, and really excited to be here and share any experiences that might be helpful for the crowd, and share some good stories.
So we'll discuss with Tim, how he has used product as a wedge to grow his business, right from user acquisition to conversion to retention, expansion, the full cycle. We plan to keep first 40 minutes or so for the conversation, and then we plan to open it up for question and answers for following 20 to 30 minutes. Before we get into the discussion, Tim, can you share briefly your background, and for those in the room who don't know what Apollo is, although in the networking break, I met so many folks in the audience, it seems more than a networking meetup, this is an Apollo user meetup. So can you share your background and what Apollo does? Thank you.
Yeah, so I'll start with what is Apollo. So Apollo is a go-to-market platform for B2B companies. So we've built a database of 200 million business contacts worldwide, and we help salespeople and marketers and recruiters identify their most likely potential future customers and then reach out to them with the best message at the right time. A bit about how I founded Apollo. So I'm definitely much more of an engineer by training, actually. So how did the engineer found a sales software company? So I studied computer science and math at MIT and worked at a quant hedge fund for a bit before quitting to do my first startup. And Apollo came directly out of trying to solve a problem for my first startup. Because as an engineer, I can build products, but so I spent all this time building a product that I thought was pretty good. It was an education, and now it's like, how do I get more users? How do I get more revenue? How do I sell this product? and bought some of the tools online. They were super expensive and kind of clunky. Data wasn't very good. Had to buy multiple tools, stitch it together. It was just kind of a bad experience. And so one day was like, let's just build our own in-house go-to-market platform. And so we wrote a script to index to basically build a map of all the potential users out there that we could go target, all the teachers, all the principals, and then built a really targeted email campaign tool to send them super targeted messages. And using that, we went from 5K to over 150K users in just 5 weeks. And it's like same product, but like 20 times, 30 times more value. And I tell my friends about this, and they're like, "Wow, that's awesome! But can you help us do that for our company?" But they're selling to IT or HR or whatever they sell to. So decided to sell the first company and focus on Apollo full time. And it's been about 6 years or so. I would say there's like a couple of 3 phases of our journey. First phase is when we started. Everyone was doing sales-led growth then, so we also did sales-led growth, and maybe went from 0 to 5 million ARR in a couple of years. So that was fine, but that ended up not being the most best way to go to market that we found. Unit economics wasn't the best. The ease to scale wasn't the best. And so we spent a year and a half just focusing on setting up all the foundations to go product-led. And then since then, we relaunched it about 2 years ago. We almost like tripled revenue 2 years in a row, per year, 2 years in a row. And I think right now we have about 1 million users across 16,000 paying customers, and still growing over 150% year over year. And I think I would credit a huge part of that to our product-led growth journey. And I think a lot of companies start with PLG, but I think for us it was quite interesting to transition from sales-led to product-led. Excited to share some lessons and learnings today.
So Tim, as you said, unlike most PLG companies, you didn't start as PLG native. You started as a sales-led growth company, which is where most SaaS companies start. And then at some point you made a realization out of inefficient cost of doing business that PLG is the way to go. Can you unpack for the audience here, because this might be of interest to many of us, what was the transition phase like, where you also had a product that reps were trying to sell for $10,000 a year, and you were still building a product, an Apollo Lite product, for $50 a month. So what was the transition like, and what kind of trade-offs or challenges you went through, especially in that phase?
Yeah, so it's quite the transition. So to give some context, so initially we were sales-led. So what does that mean? So we hired an army of SDRs to email and call people, to generate meetings, and then we have account executives do a demo, a discovery, a POC, a negotiation to close the deal, and then we would hire CSMs to onboard them, and 4 onboarding calls, and support reps, and just this entire human-driven motion, which is the standard, at least back in the day. And what we realized, there's a couple of problems with that. First is, I think maybe that works if you have like $250,000 deals, super enterprise. But for us, like we're trying to sell to SMB, and the unit economics is just like super expensive. So in some ways we were growing a lot, but we're also burning a lot of capital to do that. So that's why you see all these companies, they grow revenue, but they burn hundreds of millions of dollars to get to that revenue. It's just because it's super expensive to do sales-led growth. I think the second reason is more of a mission-driven thing. So our mission at Apollo is to democratize world-class go-to-market for everyone. So as long as you have a great product, let's say you're an engineer, you build a great product, you can reach your full market potential instantly. You don't have to hire an army of world-class experts in sales ops to piece together all these tools, and just anybody can do it, one click. And to do that, we can't rely on hiring an army of people to sell to 10 million businesses. It's just like to reach the mission of Apollo is not gonna cut it. Like imagine if Zoom has to individually sell to every single user. It's not gonna work. So that there's also like the mission-driven aspect as well. And but I guess so in some ways like in my gut, it's always like just made sense like from first principles to do. However, the transition period was really hard because you have this team of a really built team. You have numbers to hit. They each have numbers to hit. So it's like in some ways where we want to go as a company is dichotomous to what the interests of the team are. So how do you do that? Like even take pricing. You're not going to self-serve your way into a 50K self-serve, but self-serve is usually $49. So how do you do that? I think the couple of big I guess I can talk about it at a high level and then we can dive deeply. So I think first thing we did is create in making this big transition, create it is a big transition, so we wanted to de-risk it not just for us but for our team. And so we created a baby product. We called it, nicknamed it Explorer, and it was a free product, and it was so stripped down that we literally took our core product and X'd out every single non-essential feature. Because one of the problems that we're trying to solve for the core product as well is in order for PLG to work, your product needs to be so simple to use that anybody can use it can understand how to use it in 2 minutes. Whereas our core product was very powerful but very complicated and required CSMs 4 calls to figure out how to use. So first is we crossed out every single possible thing that is not needed, created a very, very dumbed down version. It's let's say previously there was 40 features, there was literally only 1 feature. And that also not only helped our CSMs, or sorry, our sales team not care as much because they can still sell the full product, but in retrospect, it also made it easier for us to actually activate users because the product is actually simple. And then we just built that on top more and more and more until it's like you have the core product and then the baby product, and then eventually the baby product grew up and above. But still there's a point where we're selling 2 products. And I think there was one moment where we need to figure out pricing. So we had $15,000 as our core product, and our PLG was $49, and our core product was unlimited leads for $15,000. So we wanted to offer unlimited leads at $99. So and the sales team was just freaking out about this. They have to close 30 times more deals to make the quota. And so how do we accomplish that? So I think just being kind of a data-driven guy, it's okay, let's run an experiment. So let's run this promo where for a limited time, startups, if you qualify as a startup, you could get this discount of $15K to $99, and let's just put it out there and see what happens. And what we realized is that if you plot the volume times price, just the volume shot up 30x through the roof. And they don't have to talk to a salesperson anymore. They can just buy it themselves. And with that little promo, we realized that the sales team actually closed more deals. Basically 15-minute call closes. They don't have to go through massive sales cycles. And with that experiment-driven mindset, they were able to just wow, this is amazing. And we can talk about this later, but just there is actually not a dichotomy between sales-led and product-led. Our sales team now are way happier than they were before because A, they're getting much more volume of these, and B, the product, they don't have to talk to somebody who already doesn't know about your company or has never used your product. You're only talking to people who already use your product and love it, and they just run into some feature gate. Or they have 20 users and you want to get the remaining 10 users onto the platform. So the sales velocity, I think right now our sales team has 50% win rates, which is 2-3x better than average. 7-day sales cycles, just the sales team has it really easy now as well. So there's a misconception of sales-led versus product-led. It's really like a virtuous synergy.
Let me ask you more broader question. What do you think are the key elements to make product-led growth work for any company?
Definitely, yeah. So I think product-led growth is a system that there's maybe 7 or 8 different components, all of which you kind of have to, or at least we had to get right in order for our flywheel to really kick in. So I think first is around just the value proposition of your product. So you need to have a way to deliver value to an individual user and not an entire enterprise, because an enterprise can't do product-led. So for example, Notion or Zoom, a user can get value from that, but you can also get value, bigger value at a larger company. So for Apollo, initially we sold to the entire team. The entire sales org has to be on it in order for anybody to get value. But we just created a dumbed down version of the product where an individual rep get value as well. And so the first thing is like make sure that your product is structured in a way that it's possible for an individual user to get value. I think the second aspect is acquisition. So like in sales-led, typically it's a lot of outbound sales, trying to get SDRs to cold call people to get leads. Doesn't really work in product-led. And for us, people always ask like, what's the point of freemium? Like why freemium, right? So we have a very, very, very generous free product. It's like better than actually better than a lot of people's pay products. What we found is that there is a linear relationship between the number of organic signups we get and the number of free weekly active users we get, which makes sense if you think about it, because the more users you can only tell somebody about a product if you're using it. And so, so we made the free product really, really generous so that we can get a lot of users. And right now, organic traffic drives like 70–80% of our revenue, because the more users you have, the more they tell about other people about it, and the more it's like one part of the product flywheel. So that's the acquisition piece. I think activation is the third part. So can you get them to value as quickly as possible without needing any human whatsoever? And this part probably was the hardest part for us in that our initial product was really complicated, but we as such created the very baby product. So we tried and failed to take our complex product and make it simpler, because it would have taken 4 years to do. So instead we just dumbed it down and created it from the bottoms up. And then we relentlessly measure this thing called the aha moment. What % of users are able to, from sign up, are able to reach the aha moment, and just like relentlessly focus on that. And I think went from like 4% to literally like 10x it over the period of the last couple of years by just thinking about experiments, doing user interviews, usability interviews, all that stuff. And then fourth part is probably just monetization. So yeah, talked about. Well, to do that, you have to have a good pricing model. So, so the thing with product-led is, generally speaking, there's a free product because it helps with activation. Generally, you have to, like nobody's going to self-serve $99, or sorry, like $15,000, but people will self-serve $49. So you have to have tiers, but you also don't want to cannibalize the entire rest of your upside. And so took us a long time to figure out the right pricing. And the way we did it was a combination of a lot of A/B testing. Like literally, we have like 5 variants of pricing out there, and trying to figure out which one converts the best and retains the best. And then a lot of user interviews to ask them what's too expensive, what's too cheap, what's the right packaging, those kind of questions. Once we have the pricing figured out, you have to figure out the monetization. So there's self-serve monetization, which initially is the majority, but sales actually plays a huge part as well. And I think there's 2 parts of sales that we had to transition. So first part is I call it solid assist. So instead of needing to cold call somebody, like sell somebody over a discovery, then a demo or whatever, they already come in knowing they want something. You just want to answer a couple of questions. So that's like the very high velocity, one call close, 20-minute demo, and that was so setting up that motion was very different from our typical motions. And then the other part is the more proactive, account-based, product-led sales. So that's like if you already have a user, an account that has like 200 paying users, but they have 10,000 reps. So getting an account executive to target the managers of the reps to get them to use more. So those are a couple of different sales motions.
Fascinating. And in the early phase, like 0 to 1 phase, when you were launching, you said, right, like the baby product. Mm-hmm. What really went well for user acquisition? Because I talked to a lot of founders, and one of the concerns is that I can build a great product, but where users come, mm-hmm. and what do I do to bring them in volumes? Because otherwise, I may be relying on lots of users to come, and if I don't get them, I'm also not doing anything on the sales front, then I might be in the middle of nowhere. So can you share how did user acquisition work for us?
Yeah, so at the very beginning, there was a couple of tactics. So first is, this might not apply to you guys, but if you search for somebody on LinkedIn, let's say, sometimes like LinkedIn, or if you search somebody on Google, usually LinkedIn's the first result, but sometimes Apollo is like the 3rd or 4th result, and that type of product-led SEO was a big driver of traffic. And then a lot, like we also was able to use Apollo to just reach out to users. So let's say there's sales reps that we might want to target, and we just posted a cool GIF or GIF of what the value is, and and the fact is there's probably millions of users out there that could use Apollo, so we just emailed them and then got the initial base. And then probably a third area is for especially enterprise type products, you really want to take one user and turn that one user into critical mass of active users. So once one or two reps signed up, what we would do is email, based on that rep's usage, email other people at that account to try to get them to sign up as well. And so a lot of different, also using Apollo, but a lot of different growth hacks at the beginning. And then once, I think the key though is having good retention of your product, because if you have good retention, then that mass just builds, and then the flywheel starts to build from the organic traffic.
How have you figured out retention? Speaking of retention.
Yeah, so retention it's by far the most important metric. So we actually built this growth model where you take your signups plus activation, or times activation times retention times monetization, all that stuff, and by far the most sensitive variable to ARR is retention. So retention is also notoriously hard to improve because it's if you want to improve retention, how do you improve it, right? It's not like sales where you can it's very easy to figure out how to get more signups or all that kind of stuff. Retention is very vague concept. So a couple of things that we did that were pretty helpful. First, from an analytics perspective, it's breaking down retention into pieces that you can actually influence. So a foundational research we did was, how Facebook has that saying where once they figure it out that if 7 customers, or if they invite 5 friends in the first 7 days, then they'll have a 80% chance of retaining over the long term. So we did that similar type of study and realized that what are the behaviors that drive long-term retention? So for us, it's if they send at least X emails and downloaded Y leads, then they're able to retain for the long term. So now we have behaviors that we want to influence. So we call those habit moments, where if they do those, they'll retain for the long term. So we did all these studies to understand what is behavior we want to drive, and then relentlessly focus on driving users to those behaviors that correlate with long-term retention. So that's one thing. I think a ton of user interviews, NPS surveys, and there's a lot of other stuff, but the metrics foundation, I would say, was super critical.
Interesting. I'm shifting gears to role of sales in product-led growth, because in many ways, in PLG, product leads, but then sales follows. So how to think about how sales qualifies product, the leads that product is generating, and when to hire the salespeople, how to ensure which leads to look at, which ones to ignore. Because even if you look at history of, let's say, product-led growth, companies like Datadog, Cloudflare, Figma, Apollo, and everybody else, at some point you have to figure out the sales game as well. So any thoughts, anything you would like to share around that?
Definitely. So before product-led growth, we had, let's just say SMB AEs who are selling 10K, 15K deals, high velocity. But it still takes some amount of skill to do, because you have to do a good discovery, good negotiation, all that stuff. And so what we found is that with product-led growth, that kind of bifurcates. So it bifurcates into very, very simple, sales assist that even a support rep can do, and then more advanced, actual proper sales. So what we found is, first is, so there's the buyers who already know what they want. They just have a couple of questions around pricing, and so those couple of 20-minute call, you can close them. There's buyers that already play around with the product a little bit, and they just want a demo of my use case. So just those are very, very high velocity sales. And we realized that you actually don't even need an SF-based AE that you're paying them, whatever we're paying them. You can just even support reps can close those deals. So that was just a really big efficiency gain. And I think the second type of sales are the more proactive sales that we do. And so there's a couple kinds there. So there's like the the user themselves being a customer. So every time a user signs up and they downloaded let's say they downloaded 100 leads and let's say our limit is 150 credits. So we'll send them an email. It's like, hey, you're almost out of credits. Or they had a feature gate, we'll send them an email. Or we have this chat widget on our site, so we would automatically ping them about so a lot of different ways to generate leads from our users based on their usage patterns. And we'd also direct those to our more sales assist team to try to upsell them. And then I think the third area is the more proactive, like enterprise style product-like sales, where you based on the usage that they count, if they have like 20 reps and they have using it, but you have 100 reps, then trying to reach out to the manager or director or VP. So that's, and we found that it's also much easier to sell to a VP or director if 20 of the people are already using it and getting some value. And so in every single aspect, so that's why it's not really a dichotomy, it's like a synergy between sales and product. Like every single one of these sales is so much easier than your typical enterprise sales where you go in with just cold and no traction. Just the proof is already there, the momentum is already there, and so yeah, definitely very synergistic product-led versus sales-led sales.
Interesting. I mean, one of the many ways of looking at what product-led growth is delaborizing the user journey with your product, and right from lead acquisition to conversion to, and also if you look at the team view of sales, success, support.
Yeah.
So how did you think about what's the right balance in the spirit of delaborization? What's the right balance between human touch and self-serve? Like, what remains still human-driven and what remains still self-serve? And for you, and more generally speaking, like, how do you think about that?
Yeah, we actually have this value or quote or principle at Apollo. It's called, I think we stole it from Atlassian, but it's called like any any human interaction that's needed in software should be considered a bug. Because if you think about it, like you don't really talk to anybody at Slack or Google or Gmail, because you don't need to, because it's like so easy to use that you don't need somebody to sell you Gmail because you can figure out how to use it, or Google Suite or any of these like Zoom or whatever, right? And so overall, like our principle has been figure out what people are spending their time on, and you're not going to be able to solve all of them immediately, but but just like pretty relentlessly productize that to make that low value thing like no longer needed, which is also good for the rep because they don't want to do those low value things. They want to do more interesting high value things. And so I think this applies across sales, across support, and across customer success. So in sales, it's like before they were just literally order taking because we didn't have a self-serve experience for a lot of different products. So we made those self-serve, and now instead of order taking, they actually can move on to higher skilled activities. So we're always trying to get rid of things that are sales only, that are behind the paywall for sales, because of that. On the support side, just every single week we create a report of all the how-to questions, for example, that people ask, and then categorize them and rank them, and the ones that have the highest bang for the buck to fix now, we just remove that. So that's on the support side. On customer success, like we shadow our CS team to figure out like why do they need to be on a call in the first place, and then during onboarding, for example, and just fix that as well. So that's like one angle, and but like you're always going to need humans. You're always going to have technical support issues. You're always going to have enterprise customers. You're always going to basically like. We want humans to be much more around relationship building, which unfortunately like AI can't quite do for the time being. So like enterprise sales, right? Like you're always going to need it because you need somebody to engage multiple stakeholders and build relationships, and like that kind of thing is what we want humans ultimately to spend more and more of their time on.